How's it going? Welcome, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. It's the last session, so you know what to say, save the best for last. No, certainly kidding there. Sashi, Wayne, and all of the Zaloni team have done such a great job giving us a lot of insight today, and that's been so powerful in understanding, you know, what DataOps is, where it came from, where it's going, kind of how that is changing and driving the industry. And so what I want to do for us today is show you Arena, which is Zaloni's DataOps platform that helps us take all of these best practices that we've talked about and actually begin putting them into place. And so whether you are new to this or a longtime DataOps user, I think there's going to be a couple things that you might see that really kind of stir up some vision on how we're able to achieve this. So that being said, I'll dive right into it. I'm going to go through a couple slides just as a quick recap for anyone who wasn't here for maybe some of the previous pieces, just to give you a quick highlight of what Arena is, but then we'll jump right into the demo. All right. So as a quick recap, as we think about DataOps, the biggest struggle that we see in the industry is really, I think, well shown in this picture. So we have all these great databases, we have all these great cloud tools. Certainly, as we saw with Shashi, we have so much technology and data available to us that really can change how industries are working. And of course, at the top of this picture, we have data scientists, we have data analysts, we have all these great roles and users that are learning new tools, new applications, whether it's a QuickSight or a Tableau. If you're using a Jupyter Notebook or a Databricks, it doesn't matter. There's all these amazing tools, but the problem is this chasm in between. If we can't get the data and the tools to the users, that's where the problem lies. And really, it's driven by a lot of different things. Certainly, things that have been talked about today in much more detail, but legacy data lakes, old warehouses, new formats, old formats, uncaptured formats, siloed data. This is a small listing of some of the problems that separate those great users and value producing actions from the great tools and data that we have. So how do we resolve that? Well, what we've seen in the industry is you really need to do these three things. And this is what Arena, Zaloni's data platform, focuses on doing. We want to catalog. So we want to catalog all your data regardless of where it's at. I don't care if it's on a CSV file on your desktop or in an S3 bucket or some on-prem data lake. Let's catalog all of it everywhere and provide rich information about it. Let's control it. Certainly a big catalog is a CISO's nightmare if it's not well controlled. So we need to use the excellent controls that you can find in tools like AWS, as well as we want to control the data that's actually in it. So if I have healthcare data that I want to make available, we're obviously going to have some sensitive attributes. So we want to be able to obfuscate those, whether it's masking or tokenization. We want to be able to track it across different tools, create that lineage. And then as we think about control, we want to do that not only in a privacy or security manner, but we want to do it in a quality manner as well. Because even if I have all this great data, if it's mixed in with a bunch of bad data, as an analyst, that's gonna slow me down. And again, that's anti-data ops. So we want to implement quality control as well. And then finally, even if I have the best data in the world, it's controlled, it's available, but I'm not able to use it, it provides me zero value. I just have a big proverbial paperweight per se, because it's providing no value. We got to get it to that end user. And so that's where we come in and, again, try to help allow users to quickly consume it, do that in a marketplace kind of self-service fashion. But again, tying that back to control, because certainly we don't want people just going and creating more data sprawl with a bunch of sandbox environments or getting data that they shouldn't get. So that's what I'm going to show you today. And there's a lot of different use cases. Again, I know we've touched on some of these throughout, but this just gives you a broad idea of how data is changing the way our businesses work and how data ops is ever more important because of these different use cases and technologies that are all interacting. So with that being said, let me dive right into our demo, and I'll try to move quickly to give us some time for some questions. So I'm logged in to our platform here. This is Arena, and I'm logged in currently as a data engineer named Ben. Now, I mention that because obviously, as we think about those 3 C's, that can encompass a lot of different users. That might be, a more technical user, someone like a data engineer, data steward. The titles might vary organization to organization, but these are users that are bringing in data, applying data quality rules, maybe creating those golden records or different transformations, and making that data available to our second user that we're going to talk about, which is our end user. So this might be anyone from a data scientist who's pretty technical down to a business analyst who maybe doesn't know that much in terms of different deep technology here, but their job still interacts with data and they need to produce that dashboard that's going to give powerful insight. So those are the 2 roles we'll talk about, the technical user and the end user who just wants to come and consume the data. So with that being said, logged in on my homepage here, a couple different things you'll notice right away. First off, we have that idea of catalog, control, and consume. That's very much built into our platform. And so what we're doing is trying to make that process very simple for the users. The second thing you'll see here, certainly some different graphs and information. I highlight these not because of the pie chart or the bar charts, but just to give you an idea of what we want to do as we think about data ops is provide insight both on our data, what zone is our data in if we're using a zoned architecture, what are the sources, etc., but also behavioral or operational metadata. Who's using our data? Where's it being provisioned? Amazon, as we know, does a great job when we're shopping online of telling me what are other people buying. And so we want to do the same idea and let your users understand what are people using, how are they using it, and give that insight. So if you think back to that picture that Susan showed at the beginning, the day in the life of your data, that's really what we're going to walk through here very, very quickly. So as we think about cataloging, the first thing we have to do is bring data in. Now, sometimes this might be ingesting it. Maybe you have an S3 data lake and you want to ingest your data. We provide the tools and capabilities to do that, or we allow you to partner. Maybe you're using some of those great tools that Shashi just showed off in AWS that allow you to bring your data into S3. We do that, but as we do that, we also catalog the data. So we can catalog it as it's moved into a data lake or something along those lines, as well as we can catalog data as it stands in one of your databases. So if you have an on-prem MySQL, we can crawl that database and catalog that information. Now, for time's sake, we won't walk through that ingestion process, but we have a bunch of different ways that we can do that and make it very easy for you. But what I will show very quickly is what really powers that in the background. So as we think about data being moved in, or maybe even once we've moved data into something like a raw zone, we might want to perform some different operations or transformations on it as a data engineer. And so what we allow our users to do is to use different workflows that can process this data and apply different actions. So as we think about that use case with Bremer Bank of data mastering, they're using our workflow tools here to build out these pipelines in a very visual manner. So we're looking for a very low code, no code way to process our data, not only as we ingest, but as we maybe create clusters of data. And then we move some of that to Elasticsearch, but also create golden records on it. And so you can see here, we have a variety of ways, whether you're writing custom code, converting data, moving in and out, transforming, etc., so that users can quickly and easily ingest data, process it, and do whatever it is that they need to do. And that's really kind of the workhorse that runs in the background of Arena, powering that ingestion wizard, powering our provision, etc. So the workflows here are just one example of how a data engineer might move some data or process data. And it's worth noting here that, as you'll see in a minute, when we apply these workflows or operations to our data, we're also capturing that lineage that we talked about. So lineage, of course, very important, so we understand what's been done to our data, who's used it, and where has it gone. And so we're going to capture all of that automatically. But we can also capture that, again, if you're using external tools. Maybe, again, if you're an AWS user and you're using things like Glue, as you process that data, we want to capture it there too. So let's take a look at some of our entities in our catalog. Now I'm going to quickly change projects. So projects are a way that we can group our data or quickly, segment it. Maybe if it's a different vertical or different department that users have access to. And I can click on that entity and we can see our entry in our data catalog. Now, again, as we think about this from a data engineering perspective, a couple things we might want to do. We might want to apply different things like labels, descriptions. Maybe it's a link, maybe it's a picture, maybe it's words as it is here. That's going to give us insight into how this data is being used and where it's being moved to. We can use different custom attributes. Maybe we want to specify where it's come from. If this is a healthcare data set, maybe I want to specify what ontology codes are present in this data. Each data set might have different attributes that we want to make custom, but also ensure that they're consistent across the database. And of course, we're capturing technical details as well. And so these are all things that some are being auto-generated, but again, as a data engineer or the maybe technical SME or business SME, I can come in and provide good details about this data and make it easy for my end users to understand. We obviously are capturing details about the field as well. And so what this does for me as a data engineer, not only can I provide descriptions or specify what data type it is, but I can also go and apply some of those control mechanisms. So whether it's data privacy or data quality, it makes it very easy for me to apply those. Maybe if I look at my profiling for this zip code, I notice we have a bunch of fake zip codes. So I could apply our quality rule of a valid US zip code. That's going to ensure it's a true 5-digit zip code, not zeros, ones that actually exist in the US. I could, save that, or I cancel in this case. Maybe if I have sensitive data like emails, I might want to obfuscate that. I can apply a tokenization algorithm and specify my sensitivity. And as we showed you in the workflows, our workflows give you the ability to, automatically do this processing for us. So I click that checkbox to say I want to, apply this algorithm, and our workflows can orchestrate that for us. Another convenient thing about our workflows being the processing tool for that is it enables us to do things like auto data classification. So Susan mentioned this a bit, but this is another convenient tool in how we're seeing data really change, because if I have a lot of data, we should automatically be able to scan through that data, understand if some of that is sensitive or not, and then apply some kind of obfuscation or quality mechanism based on what the data is. So that's just a couple ideas of what it looks like as a end user, or excuse me, as a data engineer or a technical user to use Arena. Now let's shift our focus or change hats to what does it look like as a end user? So as an end user, I certainly could come in and click on the entities and look through that list like I did before. But oftentimes what we see our users doing is they search for the data just like you search for anything on the internet nowadays. If I have a question, I certainly immediately go to Google and search for my question. And so we want to provide that same easy access to the users. So let's say I'm a business analyst and I've been tasked now with creating a report. Maybe it's a monthly report or a new report that's going to help drive value for my company. I can simply search whatever I need to find up here. In this case, again, we'll look for a customer table, and I get back all the results that I have access to across my different projects. So certainly, again, keeping in context with access control limits, but for everything that I do have access to, let me look at that and quickly filter down. Now you'll notice in this screen, we have a couple different icons, and that's because our catalog is not just entities or data sets really, but it's data artifacts. And what I mean by that is what we're seeing as a trend in data ops is users don't want to always just find the data. Certainly that's one piece that we want to be able to access, but they also want to be able to find pieces that were related to the data. What workflows were applied to that data? What reports have been generated by that data? What are different models, namespace variables? Maybe I have code that I've stored in GitHub that's associated with that. I want to find that too. So all of these data artifacts can be stored in our catalog and searched based on the details that we provide. So as you can imagine, there might be a lot, tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of artifacts depending on your organization size. So we obviously want to be able to drill down quickly. I'll choose my project. Maybe I want it to be an entity or a data set. So now I have some more specific drill down options. I can choose the source, I can choose the schema, I can choose the zone even. And so if I choose raw zone, again, it takes us back to that same table that we just had. Now I've stayed logged in obviously as the same user. So in this case, I have access to raw data, but because that idea or concept of zones is baked in, oftentimes end users won't have access to data in the raw zone. Maybe they only have access to data in the trusted zone. And that's going to be, of course, dependent on what architecture or configuration works best for your organization and your platform. Now, as a user, I have all of those great details I had before that help me quickly understand my data set. Again, fields, I certainly can look at some details and some profiling to understand. But I have other tools here as well that also provide me insight that we didn't touch on. Things like ingest history. This shows me, how fresh is my data. As we talk about, streaming or micro batch, just that concept of bringing data in more and more often, we want to see when was the last time this data set was updated, because I don't want to work with old data. And so we can capture things like that. Lineage, obviously a big piece that we talked about. We can see how our data is being used and what's been done to it. So in this case, I have a customer table, obviously, that we can see here. And I can see the workflow actions that have been applied and then how that was done. So very quickly looking at our data quality, if you recall, we had some data quality rules. We can see what percentage of those failed. Maybe a couple rows had no emails and a couple rows had no phone numbers. And what we've done is we've automatically split that data up. So our data stewards or engineers, they can go and resolve the bad data or those 0.1% of rows that had nulls in them. And I, as this business analyst, I don't want to mess with the dirty stuff. I want only the good data. And so I could click in that. But I can also, of course, keep working down this lineage and see how this data has been used. So again, as a business analyst or an end user, maybe I might only have access starting at data in this trusted zone. So I would be able to see that these details have been or actions have been applied, but I'm not going to be able to actually click in and view them. But obviously in this case, I can. And I can see other things that are associated. So it looks like in this example, we had a customer table, we applied some actions, and we actually joined it with several different data sets. And we created an entirely new data set that is also cataloged. So I can click in that, and as you'd expect, I can jump right into that data set as well. So that's, an example of how we're able to quickly look and understand our data. Again, maybe I preview it as well to understand what are the first 50 rows, what does that look like? And it's worth noting, of course, that this is faked data. So for any privacy officers out there, certainly no worries there. But what we've seen so far, though, is really this concept of cataloging and, again, controlling, and some aspect of consuming, making it easy to, as an end user, understand the data. But like we said, we want to make it very quick, very easy for the end user to quickly access and use the data. And so that's the final piece that I'll show you here. What we might want to do is go ahead and actually consume the data. And as I mentioned earlier, maybe my task is creating a dashboard, or maybe it's creating a report or a model, does not matter. What I can do here is I can add this data to my cart. So just like shopping on Amazon, as I talked about before, I want that easy experience. So I can sub-filter my data down. Maybe I only want 50% of it at random, or I could select a custom filter of rows. Same thing for columns. Maybe I only need a few columns. I can throw out some others. And I can name this data set. We'll see our shopping cart is updated. Now I could go and create, more data sets in my shopping cart. So gather all the data that I need. And once I've gotten all that data, I can simply check out, or in this case, really provision. So our provisioning, again, is going to utilize that workflow tool. And I mention that because it makes it extremely configurable. So I can change all these different details. I'll quickly just add some details here. But things like these drop downs, again, because these are all configurable, it helps me adjust these so that I can better understand some of that behavioral data. Again, why are we using this data? What's the industry? But I can also use those workflows to call external APIs. Again, if I'm running in Amazon, maybe I want to spin up an EC2 instance. I want it to come preloaded with Python and R, because those are tools that I'm familiar with. And then thinking again about how we control it, I can set things like data lease durations and approvers. So in this case, after 15 days, my data is going to be automatically removed and my VM is going to be automatically spun down. My approval, maybe I'm using a ticketing service like ServiceNow. So we'll generate a ticket, it'll go to our approver, and once he approves it, will the data then be moved and my VM be spun up? Now, again, these are just a couple of different ideas of what some of our customers are using, but it's all very configurable so that your organization can use it as needed. Finally, I can land in a bunch of different locations. In this demo data set, I can land it in Hive or a relational database. Other options might be FTP, landing in an S3 bucket. Again, the possibilities are really endless. But in this particular example, I'm a Snowflake user, so let's go ahead and land it here. I'll provide some credential details. And then finally, I have this overview page. Here's what's going to happen. Here's where it's going to go. I can go ahead and submit this, and it's going to kick off that process. So that's just a quick look at what it looks like as a user to utilize and quickly access that data that I need. So with that, we got 5 minutes left. We'll take any questions that users might have.
All right, thank you, Cody. That was awesome. We do have a couple of questions from your session, particularly, again, if there were questions that anybody had from previous sessions, we will follow up over email. But the first one I have here is, do I have to have the approval as a part of the provisioning process?
Yeah, so certainly not. Like I said, that we like to show all of some of those different possibilities that our customers are using to give you just an idea of what that looks like. You can use that process. Again, it could be integrated into a third-party ticketing service, or you can allow your users just to immediately access that data and go purely off your access control. That's just one option of what we allow.
Okay, great. Looks like I've got 3. The next one is my data locked into your system or can I pull it out somewhere else?
Yeah, so we are not actually storing the data in Arena itself. So our platform is running in your environment, and it's orchestrating all of these different pieces and helping you again understand the data. But we're not actually taking your data and storing it in Arena. So that being said, it can be stored where in a variety of different places. Thinking about AWS, for instance. Oftentimes, users might have their data stored in an S3 bucket. They might have it stored in Redshift. Again, a lot of different options there, but that data is accessible to you in however you want to use that. And then when you're using Arena, obviously you might want to lock that down to control access outside of the process of Arena or other tools.
Perfect. I think the next two questions might be combined. I'll just throw them both at you. How do data lakes play into data ops? How does this work when I have an on-prem data lake, but I'm using tools in the cloud?
Yeah, so to both of those questions, similar to that last idea is we help orchestrate across your data lake. Oftentimes, our customers might have a data lake. They might have 3 data lakes, right? They had an old one, and then they made a revision, and then they've changed different cloud providers, or they've moved to the cloud. And so we can orchestrate that data across multiple environments, multiple clouds, or on-prem for that matter. And so we're allowing users to access the data. And what we showed in that last little bit is an end user searching for data and wanting to use it. Now you'll notice as an end user, I didn't look at the technical data of where it's stored. And that's because as an end user, I shouldn't care where it's stored. If it's in my data lake, if it's in an on-prem MySQL, wherever it is, shouldn't matter to me. As Arena has cataloged and orchestrated that for me, and I should be able to use it. And for that, kind of to the second point, if the data is on-prem or if it's in the cloud, again, doesn't matter because Arena is going to move the data to our sandbox environment however we need. And so oftentimes we do see examples of that. Some of the data is on-prem, but again, we're starting to use different softwares or tools available in the cloud. And so we can move that data there as necessary or read from it. And again, maybe orchestrate that EC2 instance or QuickSight for you.
Okay, we just got one final one. Can I export your access logs out to my SIEM?
You can. So we allow, obviously with appropriate approval, access to all of the different information that we're cataloging. So through our APIs, you can get, all kinds of details about your logs, or whether that's access or whether that is workflow logs. You can use and export all those to a SIEM, maybe a Splunk or another tool that's already doing some log management. We can certainly do that.
Great. Well, thank you, Cody.